Hello, love bugs, and welcome back, or welcome to your new favorite show, a podcast that combines all the fun of gossip while still keeping all the benefits of healing to create your perfect version of closure and entertainment. This is Dear X, One Last Thing. Today's episode is a bit unexpected, though I guess at the end of the day, all episodes are a bit unexpected because I never know the content of your letter or the details of your story or what's going to come in next. But today's episode is the first time we've ever gotten a response from our very own sender. This is the first follow-up letter, the first time that someone has reached back out because of their letter, their story, their ex, their words. I was absolutely shocked to see that I had received it, and my first thought was that I had to share it with you guys. If this is the first episode you're tuning into, welcome, of course, but let me give you some background. Last episode, we heard from a 52-year-old who, if given the chance, would start over, take that risk, and pursue a love he had when he was 19. Though both him and his ex from 33 years ago are now married and lead very different, separate lives, not keeping in contact with one another, he recalls the passion, the heat, the memories, like it was only yesterday. From the story came the discussion of the woman who got away and what does it mean when the wife feels more like the other woman than the woman outside of the marriage. I talked about my own fear. My fear of marrying a man who never quite made peace with the ex that he let go of or was left by. This episode definitely stirred up some mixed reactions from listeners, but most importantly, it caused a response from the man himself who shared his life with us. A response that I'm so excited to share with you all. So without further ado, let's jump into it. He starts off by saying, I'm episode 13. I both loved your treatment of my letter and was caught off guard by you wondering if you would ever be the quote unquote second woman. I want to go ahead and stop here and say to the sender, I'm really glad that you did like my treatment of your letter because I, of course, want this show to be successful, to be talked about, to be popular. And of course, with that comes the temptation to take shortcuts. There is a certain temptation and almost recommendation to dramatize, to take a side, to villainize someone, to stir the pot, to give it as much realism and truth that's in a reality TV show, and kind of start to have very polarized or lead a conversation that would make people take a very opinionated, polarized side in order to start a discussion in the comments in order to get more clicks, more views, more shares. And although that temptation is there to maybe reach success in a shorter amount of time or quicker, the bigger goal for this podcast for myself has always been to help. And I want to help everyone. I want to help the listeners. I want to help the sender in a roundabout way. I think the podcast helps me a lot as well. And I think in order to help most efficiently, you have to look at the story as objectively as possible. And I really try to do that. And I'm glad that comes across, and I always try to mention that my advice, my opinion, my reaction is simply that. It's just mine. It's from things I've seen in my own life or maybe things I've picked up on in other people's lives and what they shared with me. But I think in order to be the best that you could be, the best host I could be, the best helper I could be, I have to remain very honest with myself and with my own biases and with my own insecurities and stay open-minded to changing my opinion if more information is presented. And I think really just trying to do the best I can with knowing that only one side of the story is shown, and knowing that if I were to read it and someone else were to read it, we might gather two different things from it. And I'm kind of just rambling on at this point, but I do want to say that I am really glad that the attempt to handle your story very gently came across. Our sender mentions that my comments on fearing that if I were the second woman and if I had a man that was wishing for his ex, and seeing the comment on our YouTube video, Nightmare Fuel, caused him to want to write this follow-up. And again, I want to reach out to the sender and say, after conversing further with the person who commented quote unquote Nightmare Fuel on the last YouTube video on this sender's story, I know that it comes across as though that person is commenting Nightmare Fuel in the same way that I was feeling it, that fear of being the wife on the other side. And that's certainly the way I took it. It seems to be the way that you're taking it. But after talking to this person further, they actually were commenting that their biggest fear was living a life from your perspective, though not that your life is by any means bad or unfulfilling or wrong or sad or something to be pitied. But we definitely discussed the fear of being unable to live up to a woman from the past. But what we ended up discussing more in depth was the fear of being unable to fully let go, being unable to stop wondering what could have been, the fear of regrets, the fear of not being able to go back, the fear of marrying the wrong person or being stuck in a marriage that you didn't imagine for yourself, or the fear of choosing the right person but not knowing it because, you can't turn the what ifs off. And it's not saying that any of these perfectly apply to you, but there were things that this story brought up for that person in their own life and caused them to reflect on. So I did want to clear that up before we jumped in to your letter to us. And after talking to this person who had commented, I feel like I reflected deeper on the fact that, your perspective is kind of an underrated fear when it comes to this dynamic, a not as recognized fear. I feel like in situations like this, we're very quick to assign good and evil, right and wrong, invalid or valid, and not recognize that we're all just people living, our life as best as we can. And I know I used to feel like older people, literally even people that were just 5 years, 10 years older than me, I felt like they had it all figured out. No questions, no confusion, no insecurity, no embarrassing moments. And what I realize now is not only is that so far from the truth, it's also not possible, because we're all experiencing something for the first time. You can only experience your age one time. You could only experience the day that you're having one time. Even if the next day was a perfect repeat, it wouldn't be the same because you would have more practice or more information than the first time, which would change how you went about it. It would change your decisions. You could always find advice for a situation you're going through, or recognize a pattern of behavior or a pattern in a person or a pattern in yourself. But no situation, sorry, my dog is whining, he must agree, but no situation is ever actually unfolding the way that it is right now in front of you. And so I think the best thing you could do is continue, to learn and work with what you have and just show up the best that you can with the information that you have. But for the most important part of this episode, our sender sends a message to us, the listener. He says, "Yes, if I could go back and do things over, I'd do things differently. But I think it's important to note that love is as much a choice as it is a feeling. I've chosen to remain with my wife, despite the fact that the spark isn't there for me. I've chosen to never look up my ex and follow that path because I've decided to place the happiness of others over my own. To my mind, love is the enduring thing that should be pursued. It's gentle, it's kind, it's selfless, but it's also somewhat bland. In an ideal world, love and passion go together, but the number of people who find that love and passion that last are vanishingly small. I know it's always been there for my wife. She feels both love and lust of passion towards me, and I was always hopeful that if I poured enough of myself into our relationship, that she would reciprocate and bring out that mad desire we all want, but in me. But I've come to realize that some people just don't love sex, don't feel passion, and don't have the mental flexibility to tease the one that they love into mad desire. I wish I had both with her, but I'm happy to give her everything and know that the love we share is solid for us and the others in my family. But I wish I could go back and see if I could catch that lightning in a bottle with Kay. And I know some people are going to listen to this letter and think he's doing the bare minimum, staying with his wife, not looking up his ex, not pursuing that path. I mean, he shouldn't get a congrats for that. There's some people that are going to feel like he's incredibly selfless, that he is sacrificing his wants, his needs, his desire to hold a family together. There are some people that are going to feel like he's incredibly selfish, that he wants his cake and to eat it too, that he has this wife who feels passion and love towards him, and why can't that be enough? Why can't he be fulfilled with that? That's just the thing. There's a million different opinions, and they all matter in a way, but at the same time, nobody's him. Nobody's living his life. Nobody has all the answers either. So I personally recognize, and I think a lot of you guys, if you're here, recognize that life is just a series of choices, and doing the right thing is so much harder than knowing what the right thing is. And sometimes knowing what the right thing is feels impossible in and of itself. My one piece of advice to you, and again, this is just my own opinion from things I've seen and things I've heard, especially as a bartender, especially as a young female bartender, I'd say wait to get married, especially if you are a young woman. The price of choosing the wrong man to marry versus the price of loneliness is so different. Not to get morbid and not to sound like you're overbearing, dramatic mother, but choosing the wrong man in the worst case leads to murder, abuse, trafficking. Okay, I know that sounds absurd. It's not. There have been women that have been conned out of everything. There have been, even in the quote unquote best cases of picking the wrong man, it leads to infidelity, which can lead to an STD. It leads to a loveless marriage, which oftentimes leads to addiction. At the very best, I guess it leads to divorce, which could feel like a big waste of time, which I personally don't believe that anything is a waste of time. I'm a very everything for a reason type girl. Maybe that's just something I tell myself to make it easier, but whatever you have to do, right? The thing is, no one thinks it's going to happen to them. No one thinks their partner is capable of the terrible things that happen, and yet they still do. Those statistics that we hear are someone's life, okay? So nobody gets into a marriage thinking, oh, this person is going to do X, Y, and Z to me, and yet things still happen. So take your time, because the price of loneliness is often really just a greater sense of self-love, of self-understanding, having deeper friendships. Especially, you could look at the stats, but women that are alone later in life often report being happier, and they usually live longer. Men that are married later in life live longer and report being happier, so it's kind of inverse there, but we could dive into that another day. But the time that you spend alone in your youth is really so short when you look at life. You're born, you grow up with your parents, you live with them, you move out, then you date, then you move in with your life partner, maybe have kids with them, and that usually continues to be your life in the most traditional way, and you stay with that person and die with that person. So that little tiny time in between that you're living alone is really so short. So don't rush it. Take all the time that you want to be young, to be free, to learn your boundaries, to learn what you like, to really just live life to the fullest. Be where your feet are. Don't always be thinking of what else is there in the future. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you can't wait to be an adult, and then you're an adult and you're like, damn, I should have appreciated being a kid. That's you right now. It's very easy to think, I can't wait till I'm married, or till we have this house, or until this is my life. And when you do, you're probably going to love it, but you're going to probably say to yourself, wow, I should have appreciated my life and all of my choices and opportunities a little bit more. This podcast, of course, is not some anti-marriage propaganda. I'm not anti-marriage myself. I just think, oh, you know what I think. You just heard it. Anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts about this story, about the follow-up, about the original letter. And of course, you know that I would love to hear your own story and your own letter to your own ex, especially with this new season coming up very, very shortly. If you are interested to starting your healing journey or finishing it up by finally closing that door to the past, go ahead and click on the link below. It'll bring you to my link tree, where the very, very, very first link you'll see is the Google form to submit a crazy little story of your own. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for following along, for sticking around. If you are still here listening, know you're one of my favorites. And if you'd like to help me out a little bit, go ahead, follow, like on whatever platform you're on right now, or send this episode to a friend who you think might enjoy it. I will talk to you next Thursday for the final episode of the season. Until then, love your friend and host, Mia Rose.